I'm so excited, guys.
Why?
Because it's so many scares.
Ah!
This season is upon us.
Yes. Did you have her out last time too, or was it her husband?
No, it was her. I'm basing them on the monsters, or the theme of the hero or the person of the movie, right?
Okay.
I see. For those not watching the video, Garrett has a beautiful standee of The Bride of Frankenstein, circa, 1941. When did that movie come out? It looks great. Yeah, you had, I don't remember who you had last time. Was it just regular Frankenstein?
It was her.
It was Bride of Frankenstein. She was here. She made an appearance last time in our reveal of the episode.
My background is still just the Kramer.
That's fine. He could be scary to some.
Classic.
A loathsome, offensive brute.
Yeah. I gotta work something out. I don't have a scary background yet. I can find something though. But yeah, it is So Many Scares month. It's one of our favorite months of the year. We're gonna, if you listened last week, you know what we're talking about this month. We talked about all of our picks. We do have though a listener pick, viewer pick coming up at the end of the month. That if you follow us on social media, particularly Instagram at So Many Sequels Pod, where we've been posting some little question boxes in there, some polls and other stuff to kind of solicit some of those movies, and you could message them or comment them to us as well. So whatever you think we should do this month that is Halloween related or a horror movie of some sort, let us know. We're going to tally them up, and that's what we're going to do. So yeah,
Listen, we're easy to scare,
honestly.
but also
Some of us more
we
than
enjoy a good time. So maybe, like, in addition to the scary ones you want us to watch, at least throw us a bone and give us a chance to watch some maybe less scary ones, and that could be fun.
It could be.
Just
Halloween,
a thought.
Halloween,
Have mercy in this Halloween time.
Yes, Halloween
Hallmark
is
should
known for
make
spreading
Halloween
mercy.
movies.
What did you say about Hallmark?
I said Hallmark should make Halloween movies.
You know,
in
they
addition to
should just
Christmas
capitalize
movies,
every holiday. Why don't they?
right?
It's
You know.
not just Christmas that you can make movies themed on. You could do it for anything. Any holiday can have a movie theme.
Coming October 28th, Trick or Heart or something like that. I don't know.
Trick Heart.
Trick or Heart.
Trick or
Or
Heart.
Trick or Love or something like that.
Oh, man. We got to workshop this. We'll do it off air.
Yeah.
Yeah,
up
I'm
the old
excited about that.
Photoshop.
I do want to talk about, though, we'll do a little mini review here at the top because Garrett and I saw a brand new horror movie just the other day. We saw Saw X, Saw 10,
Formerly known as Twitter.
Socks, or yes, whatever you want to refer to it as. Saw Twitter. It's out. It's... So I like Saw. Garrett's the Saw expert of the show. But what really
the
impressed
Saw
me
expert.
was,
Good.
the day before it came out, I saw this Hollywood Reporter headline that said, Saw 10 garners highest Rotten Tomatoes score of the franchise. And I was like, whoa, what? Turns out it did. I think it was at 85%. It's the only Saw movie with a fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes. I disagree with that. I do think the first one deserves a fresh, and maybe some others, but it's the highest rated one, so we had to go see it. I was really pleased with it. It's hard not to get into spoilers, but I will go with Garrett to really give his thoughts because like I said, you're the Saw expert, and even watching the movie, I could tell that you were like nodding and like agreeing with references that popped up that I had no idea what it was, but you would just be like, mm-hmm. And I'd go, what? So how did they do? How was Saw 10 for you as a longtime fan?
So the issue with Saw over the course of the years has been that it's kind of, I mean, just like you look at Freddy Krueger, you look at Michael Myers, you look at, oh my God, Jason Voorhees. They all get muddled, right? For me, the first three Saws were such a good story. It was like a well-rounded horror arc. It was, I mean, like, it had pros and cons. But then after that, it really kind of got into like gore porn. And so you have some characters in there, but the stories were never that great. They were kind of convoluted, just trying to tie them into Jigsaw, it felt like. And so, it was they've had several times to try to reboot it. I think Jigsaw they tried to reboot, and then you had the spiral, over there. Saw 7 brought Cary Elwes back in, and so there's been different times to kind of try to close it, bring it full circle. I think the biggest miss for this was that this world that we live in now is in a world of reboot sequels, and I had no idea that this was one of those. This spoiler alert. Until you said it to me, Josh, and so I don't think that was. There were moments where it was like, how is this happening, and where is this in the timeline? Because they don't really do a good job of establishing it, and I think a lot of these requels or whatever that they do a good job of letting you know we're tying this back to a different one, and this one didn't really do that. I think that from a story standpoint, it was pretty good. I think that it was a really interesting standpoint. Once you filled in those gaps, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, I can kind of see where it falls. I think that it kind of gave a little more insight into the mind of Jigsaw, which is needed sometimes, and what his thought process is versus the good and the evil that he perceives and that we perceive as the audience. And then the torture was painful, and really, honestly, there was one in there that was like one of the most unsettling ones. I think it is the most unsettling that I've ever seen in this franchise. It was really difficult to watch, and like afterwards, I was like, "Oh my god, I need a minute. I just saw that happen," and like
I still wonder if that can be done. Can you remove that?
I don't know, man.
That what I'm saying that
David,
is. I don't know.
Can
you remove
okay,
it? I don't know if you
spoil
can.
away.
Yeah. I'm gonna spoil
it's
it.
Gonna be 10
I'm gonna
years
spoil
before I
it
watch
because
this,
David's not
so.
gonna see it. Yeah, David's not gonna see it, and if you wanna know what it is, go see it and then come back to this. I'll spoil it. But like this guy has to drill into his own skull with like a saw, cut out a hole. He's like using a mirror, and he's like sawing into his, and then he has to extract pieces of his brain, like a piece of his own brain, and put it into a dissolved thing. And like you see him just digging in there and like messing with his brain, and it's like genuinely uncomfortable. I did not like it, and I mean that with compliments. For this franchise.
He had to.
It was really
pull out a chunk
unsettling.
that would be big enough so that when it dissolves, it would basically move the little electrode thing enough to open the key box so he could take the key and free himself. And my only question was, can you remove a piece of your own brain, or will your brain like break down in the process of tearing it open? I don't know. We should have a doctor on the show for any future Saw
Too many
episodes.
questions because one, how would you even? I don't think anybody could have the mental fortitude to try to do that, and to be able to resist the pain.
He had to do it in 3 minutes.
And to be able to resist the pain
3
of sawing
minutes,
into your own head.
3
I just feel like the second you saw it into your own head, you'd be like, "No, this hurts. I can't go on."
See, and
then
that's
two,
the thing. There was a level of this.
I would say too. I'm gonna bring this up later during our review for today's film as well. But like, do you want to win this scenario? Like, do you want to get out? Like, what's the quality of life after this? After that moment, like, are you really
and that's
like what is your best case scenario?
I have
after
that thought
pulling
in
out a piece of your own brain.
Every game I go, would it
Pull the
be
trigger.
worth it to continue on like
No.
this?
I don't think so.
Yeah. That was a level of like, I have 3. Listen. I think things out, right? And so there was this moment, and there was a couple of the traps where I was like, I think I'd just die. I think I just wouldn't do it, and I think I'd just die. Like, I could chop off my own leg and extract my own bone marrow if I wanted to, but I probably couldn't do that in 3 minutes. And then I'm gonna die anyway, and I would have done this. And I think I'm just going to die. I think I'm just going to sit here and for the next 3 minutes come to peace with the fact that I'm about to be brutally, viciously murdered.
Yeah, but at least you'd be good and dead.
But you know what? It's probably going to be quicker than doing whatever the heck that he wants me to do.
Then especially sawing into your own head, and then, oh, I got the key, and now I'm free. But like, to do what? To go where? Who's going to come help you?
Yeah. You've gotten yourself into a point in life where your best option is to extract your own brain or die. I think that maybe you should have rethought several different choices by that point in time. And maybe you just, I mean, yeah, if that is your best case scenario, maybe the best case scenario is actually the brutal death that you're about to experience,
and honestly,
without the torture.
The gal who you referenced earlier, cutting her leg off and removing the bone marrow, her method of death was relatively quick. Like it was that hyper sharp. Yep. She was beheaded, David.
See,
and a beheading,
you might as well just take it.
A beheading is
Yep.
can be relatively painless as far as I understand, especially compared to some of the other methods that you see unfold. I don't want to spoil all of them, but they don't get better than that. No. One thing though, I want to ask what you think.
Go ahead,
Garrett, because this movie really changes the perspective slightly. Because in this movie, he's being the game master as John Kramer and not Jigsaw. And I kept thinking to myself a little bit, why is he just like kind of doing this in the open all of a sudden? Kind of weird.
You see, and that's where you go back to the story being muddled, right? You said that this was a reboot, and it fell into the sequel of.
It takes place between 1 and 2,
or between the original and the second. Okay, so see, the issue with that is that again, we're getting heavy into spoilers here of this movie. So if you want to avoid this, then get out of here because this is a deep dive. But at the end of the movie, there's another helper that John Kramer has, right? The detective. Well, he doesn't show up until in the fourth or fifth one. So that doesn't make sense. And then if this is in between the first and the second one, Jigsaw would have been somewhat known because in the first one they were investigating and looking for him. So I get that they probably would have figured it out. But they mentioned that he had been doing this for so long and such a long time, and that just doesn't necessarily track. He had kind of been doing it for a little while, and just kicking it up. So there's this just a little muddled of the story. So I don't know exactly what this reboot is gonna do because they brought in a lot of characters that if you're a fan of the franchise that you will remember and recognize. But again, if this falls in between the first and the second one, some of the characters don't show up until fourth or fifth. So. I don't know. Maybe they just extracted all of Donnie Wahlberg. And, whatever. That's okay. Nobody's upset if you remove a Wahlberg.
Yeah. No. I think it's just really interesting that they were able to make this movie and essentially make John Kramer the protagonist in a lot of ways. They make some real solid attempts at garnering sympathy for him. Which is just ludicrous when you step back and think about it for a second. But in the moment, you're like, hey, they did screw over that serial killer or whatever.
See, he's got this Thanos logic that is, if you just really think about it, it almost makes sense in the serial killer mindset. He is taking people who are bad people and putting them in bad situations and giving them a chance to survive. Whereas the antagonists in this movie are just actual scums of the earth, scamming, dying cancer patients, right? Those are really bad people. John Kramer is a serial killer, but he's also just kind of taking it. He's giving bad people kind of their comeuppance again in a sick, twisted way.
I've only seen the first two Saws, so I really can't say. First one was pretty good. Second one was kind of. Do people like the second one, Garrett? Okay.
I like 1 through 3. I think 1 through 3 are really good, and then after that, it kind of goes.
Second one, I kind of feel like.
And then there's individual movies out there.
To me, the second one kind of felt like it was one of those movies where it took the wrong lessons from the first one, and it was like, okay, this worked. We need more traps and more things to happen to people, more people to be in it, right? And I feel like what worked about the first one was sort of the isolated, component of it just being those two people for the most part. Although, I don't know, maybe there were 3. I can't remember the first Saw movie. Anyhow, I saw a movie that was scary as well.
You did.
Scary bad.
Scary bad. Yes. And this, I believe I saw you say was at the request of your tiny human.
It was.
He requested a scary bad movie?
Yeah, my son Jack.
He thought it was baby
my-
shark.
Jack loves anything that has to do with sharks and dinosaurs.
Naturally.
So when I'm scrolling through Max and he sees a title card that has a shark eating a dinosaur, he said, "That I want to watch that right there, Daddy. That shark dinosaur
Sound logic.
and
I don't know. Yep.
and he loves to try to say megalodon. He says megadon. So we watched the movie. It opens in 65 million BC. Not really spoiling anything. They put this in the trailer. 65 million BC, a dragonfly is eaten by a lizard, which is then eaten by a small dinosaur, which is then eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. As the T-Rex is eating this delicious meal, a megalodon leaps out of the ocean onto the beach, snagging the T-Rex, hauling him back into the ocean. Cue Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie. Dun, 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 dun. Jason Statham's working out. All right, yeah, I'm going to stop I'm an eco fighter. I'm going to stop these guys from dumping bad liquids in the ocean. All right. And so, like, that's the opening of the movie, and my son loved this. So we watched that part at least 30 times. Just rewind to the beginning, watch the dinosaur and megalodon. Loved it. Was not scared at all. If I had known that was the peak of the movie, I would have kept just watching that part with him for the rest of the night. But I decided after it was time for him to go to bed that we did keep watching. We watched for a little while, and he was interested for about 16 minutes, and then he was like, "Okay, Daddy, more shark, more dinosaur? Like, can we go back to that?" And I was like, "I agree." And so he went to bed, and I decided I'll go ahead and finish the movie. This movie is stupid. All I could think about for most of it, because most of it is Jason Statham and crew, bunch of nobodies. Faceless nobodies, interchangeable, worthless peons. Underwater, they figure out a way to go down to this trench, and if it hadn't been for that whole Titan sub fiasco, this would have seemed like a pretty plausible event. But good grief, the burden of knowledge. After a while, the megalodons are like the fourth most unrealistic thing about this film. Like, you're just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Wasn't funny, wasn't really scary. There's barely any megalodons in the first like hour and a half. Like, they don't show up until the end. You know that this movie took me for a wild ride because, again, like I said, it begins with a shark eating a dinosaur, kick in Under Pressure, right? It ends with a Japanese version of what's that song, Stacy? They call me Stacy. And you know that song? Japanese version of that. So, I mean, it's just a wild ride of musical interludes in terms of that. It is a great time waster. It's my worst reviewed film of the year now. So I don't feel like I've spoiled much. I don't recommend anybody watch it, but if you want to join me in in my boredom, go ahead.
Had you watched the first one?
I had not watched the first one, and I can tell you this right now.
Oh my God! See, that's the key. How are you going to?
It has to be a letdown. It has to be. Like, there's no way anybody would watch this and go, "This is better." But the crazy thing is like, a sequel's bad when you watch it and you can't tell who the recurring characters are. I was like, I'm positive Jason Statham's a recurring character. I have a feeling this child he's talking to might be a recurring character. And gosh, I can't remember his name. There is an actor who is playing the LL Cool J role, Paige Kennedy. He was talking as though he was in the last one. So I was like, some of these characters, they reappeared, but most of them, and I looked it up, they didn't. Most of these characters are brand new characters just there to be, shark fodder. So anyway, I won't spoil too much more of the movie, but I will say, it's not good. Not good. Scary bad. And bad effects too. Like, not good CGI.
How long until the Meg enters Godzilla vs. Kong's universe?
Oh,
That's
gosh.
what I want to know. I hope never, because Godzilla and Kong
Triple
I still
threat.
think are decent right now.
If there was a Meg that had like any kind of character going on here, that'd be kind of interesting.
Is the Meg the
They
good
do
guy?
have. No,
I feel like he
I mean,
might be.
it's a force of nature kind of situation, where like the Megs, like, so there's one Meg in the movie that has like a name that I guess was probably in the previous one.
Of course,
That was like a baby, and now is like they've been raising it.
Megan.
Megan.
Hey everybody! So we had a little technical difficulty with this episode, which is why it's being interrupted so abruptly with us wearing different clothes, and it's just all different. So what we did was we had a great conversation about the new Hulu movie No One Will Save You, starring
one
Caitlin
of the
Dever.
best conversations we've had on this podcast in so long.
Truly, which is why
Truthfully.
it would be corrupted and a failed effort. I guess it was good practice, and the only people who will ever hear it are us.
The three of us.
So,
A special moment.
But
Lost
we
the
did
time.
want to tag the end of this episode recapping our thoughts real quick so that we can still talk about this movie and hopefully encourage you to watch it should you be interested. So we'll give you a rundown each of what we thought of it. We'll tell you who won the Letterboxd game and what our scores are. And then we'll wrap up quickly. It'll be a shorter episode than usual. But that's okay because you got a review of Saw 10 and The Meg 2 as well. So this was a packed episode anyway. I'll go ahead and go first. So No One Will Save You was not one of our personal picks for so many scares. But it was one that is just a new movie that's out on streaming that we thought would be interesting to talk about. We like to always incorporate at least one new horror or Halloween movie into the month. So we landed with No One Will Save You. It's kind of a weird movie. So it's Caitlin Dever stars as a young woman who is kind of ostracized from her community. She lives alone. She doesn't really speak to anybody. No one really speaks to her over some kind of traumatic event that happened in her past. All of a sudden, aliens invade, and we get a classic alien abduction movie. I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. I had some issues with some things I would consider a gimmick. There is a lack of dialogue in this movie. We talked about that at length. That bugged me a little bit. Doesn't ruin it. And then I also felt like there was some not great storytelling with how the traumatic event that happens to the main character is revealed. I thought that could have been handled a little differently for the audience's benefit. So I would give it some demerits there, but otherwise I enjoyed the movie, and I would recommend you watch it, especially if you're a fan of Caitlin Dever. She was in Booksmart, one of the breakout hits of the last few years, or the alien invasion genre of film. I think it's a fun addition to that as well, and we don't get a lot of those these days, it seems like. So that's my thoughts on it. Which one of you two would love to go next?
Tell you what, I'll go next because I think Garrett should go last. Because I think, Garrett, you really had some of the best points to articulate. So I just want to say real quick that I think I fell on the lower end of liking it. Like, I can sing Caitlin Dever or Devers praises for the rest of my life. She's great. I loved her from the moment that I watched her on Justified when she was a pretty young actress at that point. And it was like only her second or third show. She's fantastic in this movie. She elevates it, I think, because for me, it was never boring, but at the same time, it just never really elevated to that next place for me in terms of a film. I think the creature design let it down. I know I'm kind of, I'm in some of the minority there. I appreciate the attempt to kind of recapture the little gray men, but for me, it just kind of pulled all the scares out of it for me. I just couldn't take them very seriously. Unintentionally, it made me think of the Kate McKinnon alien abduction sketch, and which is a great sketch. Mrs. Rafferty, I believe. I highly recommend watching that sketch. So it's a strange little movie, like Josh said. There's a real mystery going on, but with a lack of dialogue and a lack of like character, really like firmly motivated lack of dialogue, it kind of can be more questions than answers at times. All I will say is that these aliens picked the wrong house, man. They did not know that they were dealing with like the John Wick of 23-year-old girls.
Yeah. I think I'm on the higher side of enjoying this movie. I'm still in the middle. there's some good things that I think that it did. And I think in the original conversation, I said that I think that this movie is going to be used as a launching point for a lot of other people who were inspired by it. I think it has the ability to be like a big cult classic that is going to be, later down the line, a person's going to be like, this movie inspired me in this way, and it's going to be No One Will Save You. Josh mentioned the silence is a bit of a gimmick, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I think it really depends on how you see and analyze the character, and if you can connect with it in a certain way. For me, I was able to kind of, I don't know, it just worked, and I was able to kind of see, she's isolated because of a couple of different tragedies in her life and ostracized, and she doesn't really talk, and I think that is kind of what they're thinking and trying to use as the bit of a silence. And so I think that piece is really interesting. Again, it's not necessarily always used well. I think that, I think there's the good parts are really good and the slow parts are really slow. I think, David, you said that last time, and I agree with that. But I think that if you really analyze the character and what this movie's trying to deliver based on who is willing to lend a hand, I guess, if you will, versus who isn't, it's kind of an interesting character analysis perspective, question, thought. But if you're looking for more like scares and horror, you may not get that. So I think it's really just, it does some things really well, and it just doesn't necessarily follow through every single time. But it's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, I think it's good to note that if you go into this movie expecting or wanting to be scared, you might not be. And I think that can be a disappointing thing for some people in these types of movies. But there is a lot of tension, so if you like that kind of thing, it will be more up your alley.
Yeah, definitely the first instance of the home invasion, if you will, is incredibly tense, and I thought they executed that really well.
Yeah. Well, that's our thoughts on No One Will Save You. Again, sorry that you missed out on the amazing would-be breakout episode that we recorded.
Truly.
Oh,
truly.
Would have sent us to the stratosphere.
It would have.
It would
have been most downloaded for sure. It was so good.
Strap the rocket to us,
Yeah,
we're going to the moon.
Straight to the moon.
I think each of us, though, we each gave it what? I think we all gave it 3 stars.
Yeah, we all came to 3 stars, even though we had some differences in opinion throughout the movie. So I think that's always fun to see.
And to make sure he gets credit, Garrett won the Letterboxd game, which is a first.
A thrilling tiebreaker, right?
It was a thrilling tiebreaker.
Yeah.
I think we went to what did we use instead? I think we
did Saw 10.
Saw 10, that's right.
Because Josh and I.
We used Saw 10 as the tiebreaker. It was Garrett's first win since Oppenheimer, so that was a while ago. Josh was on a hot 3-game winning streak until that was brought down. As of right now, the scores are me with 15, Josh with 8, and Garrett with 7. So a couple of direct hits, and you guys are back in this.
It's not out of the question, but I mean, you're gonna have to just blow it.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to have a colossal failure. Aaron Rodgers blowing out his knee in the first game of the year level failure.
Yeah.
Although that might not be apropos since that was the first game, and I would need to fail in the finals. Anyway, there's still a chance for you guys. That's all I'm saying.
There's still a chance. You're saying there's a chance.
You got a puncher's chance.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and end this episode of So Many Scares here. Be sure to find us online at SoManySequels.com. You can find links to our social media accounts there. And our entire back catalog of episodes. You can search for movies, scroll through them all. We've done several years worth of Halloween movies now, so go check out past So Many Scares. And if you really want to support the show, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/SoManySequels. If you join us there for a low fee of being our best friends, for $1 maybe, you will get access to our Discord, where we talk about movies and other fun stuff there. So again, find that all at SoManySequels.com. We'll see you all next week with more So Many Scares. There's so much month to go.